compacted inside the nucleus of an atom, it would take a lot of force to compress that together. And when we found this, we thought, oh, that couldn't be gravity. Gravity is too weak. And so we thought, oh, we should invent a new force.
Yeah.
And we called it the strong force.
Right.
And we made that force conveniently exactly the amount that it needs to be to compress what's called the Coulomb force, which is the magnetic force that would repel the particles apart. And we assumed that it was there, and we've been doing that since then, almost 100 years. But if you consider the atom as a mini black hole, and then you calculate how much gravity there would be in the nucleus of an atom if it was a mini black hole, you get exactly the amount you need to compress all the atom together and hold it all together.
That is interesting.
So you get rid of one force. You know, we have four forces in physics: the electromagnetic force, the gravitational force, and then the nuclear forces, the strong force and the weak force. And the strong force and the weak force don't agree with gravity and electromagnetism, and so it doesn't work. And it's that division in our physics. And what I'm saying is, you don't need the strong force. That was an invention of man. You just need gravity, and you don't need the weak force. The decay of the atom is the result of black hole emissions. And so you're left with only two forces: the gravitational force and the electromagnetic force. And that's what I'm saying is feeding back in space-time. The electromagnetic force radiates what moves out of a system, and the gravitational force is what goes into a system, and that's how the feedback is produced at all scales.
So I guess that explains the mystery of gravity also then, because that's a huge question that scientists have been struggling for a lot of, for many ages or many years, as it were, that they understand obviously that the force is there and what it's doing. They can see the effects of it, but they don't know where it comes from. Isn't that right?
Exactly. And so in this model, gravity is the result of the spin of space-time curling, just like water going down the drain in your tub. And if you had a little rubber ducky in your tub, when you pull the plug, the rubber ducky would get attracted towards the plug.
Yeah.
The gravity, as described by Einstein, is the result of the curvature of space-time. In the rubber ducky tub example, that would be the water curving towards the drain is bringing the rubber ducky closer and closer. And, but what was missed is the fluid dynamics, the spin of space-time itself producing that effect. And so this theory actually explains gravity and actually starts giving us clues on how to interact with it, to control it and do what we want with it.
This might be far out or stretch or whatever, but if you want to comment on it, please go ahead. What about anti-gravity craft, something like that? Would that be possible here in this, if we utilize this model that you're proposing?
Yes. I don't think of it as anti-gravity. I just think of it as gravity drive. Basically, if we understand gravity, then we can understand how to control it, how to control the flow of the water in your tub, so that we can produce little gravitational effects that are local, and then make them do what we want. For instance, if I made a little local gravitational effect that was above your head, and it was stronger, right, than the gravitational effect that you're experiencing from the Earth, then you would start levitating up. Right?
Yeah.
And so if I understand how the gravity is produced by nature, and I can, produce it, then I can create things that levitate. Transportation and space travel becomes available to everyone.
That's very interesting. So if we can this is about creating that spin, then, if I'm correct. And if we take that a step further, has this to do with frequency or resonance also then as well?
Absolutely, because spin and frequency and resonance are all connected, and there's evidence that are coming out now that spin and gravity are related. For instance, there was experiments that were done by the European space agencies a few years ago, where they took a superconductive magnet, and they a superconductive ring, like a little torus, and they spun it at very high speed, it's 5,000 RPMs, and they noticed that objects near it would start losing weight. They only lost a very small amount of weight, but they did lose weight, and that is, unusual for the standard theory, but it is absolutely predicted by my theory.
Interesting. Have you ever heard of the Hutchinson effect?
Oh, yes, I actually know John personally.
Oh, okay, interesting, because, he, as far as I can tell, if that video is real, he's managed to get a bowling ball to, go up into the ceiling, basically,
Yes, he got very interesting effects, and, I've only talked with him on the phone, and so I wasn't necessarily there, but if everything is copacetic, the way he was doing this, when I talked to him and we discussed this at length over the phone for hours, it had a lot to do with the geometry of how the devices were placed in the room, and eventually, after days of tuning, he would. What I believe is that he would start to get the fields, the electromagnetic fields, spinning in the right way, so that all of a sudden he would get gravitational effects. And, I think it is very interesting.
Yeah, indeed. Very interesting. I want to talk a little bit about things like crop circles. I know that this is one area that you go into in one of your DVDs. Tell us how do you approach the subject, and what is your overarching theory when it comes to crop circles?
Well, when I was doing a lot of studying of geometry and trying to understand the fundamental geometry of the vacuum, I came across crop circles, and it was strange because many of the conclusions I had come up with for a fundamental geometry of the vacuum seemed to be expressed in many crop circles. So I was intrigued by that, and I started studying it, and more I studied them, more I found, direct correlation between what I was finding in physics and what was coming out in crop circles. So I thought, maybe somebody is trying to tell us something, and I wouldn't be able to tell you who, but
sure.
There's a lot of strangeness about crop circles. That it wouldn't be a true statement to say that they're all fake.
Sure.
Some of them are fake, certainly, but there's many of them that are very valid mysteries, and maybe somebody is trying to tell us something about the geometry of the vacuum and how to harmonize with nature and harmonize with the universe and advance our technology to become members of a larger community, maybe a galactic community.
Right, and do you think that, because many people have proposed that a few of the crop circles actually are an effect of a I don't know if we should call it a hyperdimensional physics or a higher dimensional physics, that this could be something passing through our system, or that this is something that has happened for not just in the recent 20 or 30 years, but for going on for a very long time. Any ideas or theories about that at all?
I think that it's valid to think of it as an effect of what I would call the vacuum, in higher dimensions. But I'm thinking in dimensions in terms of scales. However, from my personal opinion and study of the crop circles, there's so much intelligence behind it. There's so much, there seemed to be a very specific message And I think that we're being contacted by a very advanced civilization that's trying to help us out. And I can imagine that, if I was a very advanced civilization and I came across a planet that was very low on the totem pole on the advancements in technology, really, when you think of us, after we only have about 150 years of advanced technology under our belt. Our idea of going to the stars is to put a bunch of fuel in a cylinder and light the bottom, call that a rocket, and we barely made it to the moon. We're not very advanced, and so in general we're very warrior-like and violent. I probably, if I found a civilization like that and I was an advanced civilization, I probably wouldn't attempt to have a direct contact. I'd be liable to get shot, but I would try to find creative ways to give them information to help them along and give them important pieces so that maybe some scientists or people that have moments of illumination could get the information and help humanity. And even just putting the information into the minefield of everybody could have positive effects.
And that, of course, kind of poses the question, if we're talking about large amounts of energy here, for instance, if we would be able to harness the vacuum and tap into that, that would probably mean that also if nefarious people got hold of this as a technology, that they could develop tremendous horrible weapons. Is that a danger, something that you think about at all? I mean, is that something to worry about?
Well, I think that a lot of the wars that we experienced and the weaponry and all this is because of our concept of lack of goods, that we have to fight for the goods, that we have to fight for the space that we have, for countries and all this. I think if we reach levels of technology where there is infinite amount of energy, we can move through our solar systems, in a easy way, just like 150 years ago, people couldn't imagine flying from Europe to the United States, for instance.
Sure.
Now it's a common thing. Well, imagine that it became a common thing that we could go across our galaxy. Well, then there's so much goods, there's so much space, there's 100 billion stars in our solar system. We are finding out now that most of them have planets and so on. I don't think that fighting will be, anything that we would want to spend time doing.
Sounds like a good idea to me, So I'm all for it, I want to talk a little bit more about the connection also to some of the ancient texts. You mentioned that at the beginning of the show that this is also one area that you have been studying in regards to all of this. And so tell us, what is the connection with ancient texts? Are there secrets or knowledge that you have found from the ancient text that hints towards this kind of theory in any way that we've been talking about here today?
Yes, well, it's like if you study ancient texts for a while, you start to find that there's a lot of commonality between texts that are widely separated by large amount of distances, like from China to Mayan text to Chinese to Egyptian text to Sumerian texts and even Vedic traditions, and so and you study all this, you find like not only that there's a lot of commonality in what's being said, but there seem to be a commonality in the experience, meaning many of them talk about a great cataclysm that occurred at one point. Many of them talk about sun gods being on the